David Smith, Teresa.
Thank you.
All right, just make sure everybody's aware, we do run our meetings live and stream to YouTube. So here in just a minute, we will be live. We also
We'll get started. Yes.
And that's me.
Teresa. Boy, somebody's feeding back there.
Yeah, that's something I'm doing.
On.
I think we're good.
Teresa, can you hear me?
Yes.
Teresa, you sent me a list. No, well, here it is. It's out. Well, that's not it. You sent me a list that had some notes on it in red, and I cannot find that. It was on my computer yesterday because I looked over it. In fact, Scott and I talked about it yesterday, some things, but now I can't find it. And my computer, when I try to bring something up, it's just sitting here, just it's so slow about doing anything. So would you resend that and let me see if I can? My goodness. What a mess. It does this every time.
I feel your pain.
I mean, everything seems to work until I get ready to sit down to do it. And then all of a sudden things are not there where they were.
Scott, did you remove it from my file?
Is this my annotated agenda?
Uh-huh.
No, it should be in there.
Okay, I'm having trouble finding it. Hold on.
And I don't know how it could disappear from my computer because I looked at it yesterday and now I go to look at it and it's not there.
It's on its way.
Not in my trash. So
It's on its way.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Let us begin by a call of the roll. Macaulay Adams.
Here.
Okay, let me pull up one other thing here too. Oh gosh.
Did you guys hear me? I didn't know if I got unmuted.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
I heard you
All
right there.
Hard to be the first. Okay, I'm going back on mute.
Okay, all right. Macaulay is here. Tony Apro.
Here.
Mindy Barfield. Becky Bowling.
Here.
Jennifer Brown.
Here.
Tressa Brown.
Here.
Emmanuel Kalk. Oh, did Tressa Brown? Okay, Tressa's here. Emmanuel Kalk. Coleman Eldridge.
I think Emmanuel's here.
Okay, Emmanuel Kalk, are you here?
Maybe I was wrong.
He may have us muted where he can't talk to us. Okay, Coleman Eldridge. Mary Hammond,
Here.
David Lee,
Here.
Terry Manuel,
Here.
okay, Sheila Mason,
Here.
Mark Nykirk,
Here.
Wayne Ongst,
Here.
Geneva Paris, Tip Richmond, Julie Skoski, Kevin Smith,
Here.
Laura Suttles,
Here.
Cynthia Torp,
Here.
okay, and I am here, and John Wolford.
Here.
Okay, great. We do have a quorum and can conduct business.
Tip
Okay,
Richmond is on the line in case, I don't know if anybody heard him.
Okay, I did not hear him, but we will mark him here. Thank you, Tip. Okay, next we have the minutes of the July 17th meeting. They have been presented to everyone. I think Teresa has emailed those to you, and I would ask if there is any additions or corrections to the minutes that have been sent to you.
I don't have any additions, but I do have one question that goes back to the roll.
Okay, yes.
Maybe Teresa could tell us, or Scott. I would just like to know which staff members are with us today.
Certainly. Scott, maybe you could give us a rundown, or you could have the staff to just introduce themselves so that we will know who all is, because some of our folks are on phone and therefore they cannot see people's names listed.
Yeah, I'll run through them real quick, and then because each of them will present at some point throughout the day. We have the KHS Deputy Director Jessica Stavros joining us, Director of Collections, Research and Collections Stuart Sander, and Director of Learning Jody Lewis. We also have the Foundation Director Doug High on the call. Did I miss anybody? And of course, Teresa is with us.
Dana Zinger.
Oh, Dana.
And Linda Redmond.
I cracked under pressure. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. After our roll call, we do have some 2020 board members that are outgoing members of our board. And I know Tip is with us, and Julie Skoski. I'm not sure if Julie was with us. I don't think she is able to join us. Neither is Coleman Eldridge, but Tip is with us. And to those members who are outgoing board members, we do want to express our appreciation to you for your service on the board, for your interest in history, and your continuing efforts on the behalf of not only the Historical Society, but history here in Kentucky. Thank you so much for your dedication. You've all been valuable assets to our organization, and we look forward to continuing working with you on matters of history and of importance to our state in the future. So thank you so much for your dedication to us. Pull my full view back up here. Okay. The minutes of the previous meeting, we did we have a motion? We had a motion and a second. Is that correct, Teresa? We did not.
No.
Okay. I had gotten to that point and then we went back to the question. So the minutes have been distributed to each of you. I would ask if there is any additional corrections to the minutes. If there are none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the July 17th meeting?
So moved and to approve.
Okay. A motion has been made. Is there a second to the motion?
Second, Mary.
Mary Hammond has seconded the motion. Any discussion? If there is none, all in favor, please say aye or raise your hand if you're muted so we can see.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have our nominating committee report, and Jennifer, I know you have worked very diligently on that, and we'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you. Let me get this item called up here. Okay, so the nominating committee, which I think this might be the third time that I've served on a nominating committee, and I'm want to mention that the other members, Anthony Epro, Geneva Paris, and Tip Richmond, were all involved in this. And I thought it was an excellent group. And we worked pretty diligently, especially through thinking about people in Kentucky who could become new board members, if not this time, in the near future. And, Scott and Teresa also have this institutional knowledge that goes back that helps us with that as well. The nominating committee has a slate of candidates for officers, and it's going to be very familiar to you. Essentially, everyone in their current officer position has agreed to serve another year, and we appreciate all of them for that. We also have 5 new or returning board members to present for the board class of 2022 through 2025. Anthony Apro has agreed to come back, to stay with us, I should say. We also have William Denny of Lexington, Alyssa Keller of Hopkinsville, Alestine Turley of Clay City, and Ryan Craig of Lexington. And Scott, if it's okay with you, I'm going to just very briefly mention something about the 2 folks that I know well enough to speak on, and then if you wouldn't mind, if you would speak on the others. So Alyssa Keller of Hopkinsville is the executive director of the Museums of Historic Hopkinsville Christian County, and I serve on that board as well. We have gone recently through $1 million renovation of our museum and the creation of a new exhibit in downtown Hopkinsville, and Alyssa led us through that like a champ. And I think you are really going to appreciate her energy and her love for Kentucky. Also, Ryan Craig, who is originally from Todd County, next door to me, but lives in Lexington now as the advisor to student media at the University of Kentucky. Ryan is known around the state as one of the top community journalists really in the country. And he reminded me when I talked to him about this that he was a double major in college, journalism and history. And so he is really excited to join us as well. Scott, would you mind saying something about the others?
Sure. Really excited. Dr. Alestine Turley's joining the board. We actually, I've talked to her on the phone now a couple of times, but I hadn't met Dr. Turley beforehand. She comes to us through our contacts through the Kentucky Historical Society Foundation, and also Akram Burton at the Kentucky African American Heritage Center. Akram's in our cabinet, and I called him looking for some folks that would give us some both racial diversity, but Dr. Turley also brings some geographic diversity to the board, representing parts of Eastern Kentucky, as well as her content area and study area. So I think it'll be a great addition to have. She's very excited and has worked with KHS in previous ventures and continues to work with us. So she has a great connection. For some of you, you'll know Colonel Alan Denny, who is now being requested to go by Dr. Alan Denny. Alan is the former chair of the Kentucky Military History Museum Committee and has served, I think he was chief of staff for the previous adjutant general, and has also great connections to the Department of Military Affairs and Ben Adams, General Ben Adams, and approached us actually some time ago and said, when my time comes, I would really like to continue my service on the governing board. He is doing some adjunct work, I believe, in history, and I forget the name of the university. I think it's on our ballot, hopefully. So again, we're bringing some great experience back into the board and adding some new folks in. And we already have several names of people that have since contacted me and said that they would be interested in serving on the board. So we have a good jump start for next year's nominating committee.
Thank you. Tommy, it's my understanding this does not require a board action, but the official vote will take place with the 2020 KHS annual meeting on Friday, November 6th.
That is correct. Yes, this is a report from you, Jennifer, and we greatly appreciate the effort. I know I've shared the nominating committee a time or two, and it's quite a bit of pulling things together and talking to a lot of people. And I know it's not an easy task. Thank you so much for your efforts.
Thank Teresa and Scott as well. They really did a lot for the committee,
Absolutely.
as always.
Thank you all. Any questions over the report? Okay, thank you so much, Jennifer. Next, we have individual reports that we will need to have given to the board. First, from our executive director, Scott, we'll start with the financial report.
Sure. On the call is Linda Redmond. I don't believe, I mean, our speaker comes out very faint, so I am opening my chat box in case Linda needs to correct me on anything I have. I believe in in the combined board report and sent out in advance was our quarterly financial report up to September 30th. Obviously, the pandemic has wreaked havoc with budgets. However, as we've had cuts in revenues, we've also seen cuts in expenses because we're just not doing the programs that we had anticipated doing as we put the budget together. As you look down, and again, I'm always hesitant to read through a complete report, but you look at our first quarter actuals for our total revenues and supports were just under $2 million. The majority of that coming in through our general fund appropriation. The earned revenues program fees for that quarter, $22,999. That's pretty good, actually. It's off a little bit where we had hoped to be, but it's not bad. We're seeing some participation in some of our virtual programming. For the most part, people are expecting it to be free or very low cost because it is virtual programming, but we are getting some activity along that line. Rights and reproductions are also kind of holding up pretty good for us. I'm trying to remember the other. Obviously, rental of facilities is one line item that we were taking a big hit on. The team has been working to try to get that back open, and Jessica will report on that a little bit later on in the meeting. So we look for some of these things to start to rebound in probably the third and fourth quarters. I don't expect much to happen between October, November, and December to make some moves. But usually our spring is when we start making some moves, and we hope that'll be true here. Down on the expense end of the ledger, we're looking at expenditures of $1.5 million, which is obviously running behind. A big portion of the difference is we brought our cash carry forward from the previous year in on this quarter, so $160,000. Salaries and wages were actually trending below, even though we're at 26.8% for the quarter. We actually have an extra pay period because we have a payroll that runs on June 1st. So we get an extra pay period in this quarter. I think a total of 7, right? 7. And so it's different. We have one less pay period in the last quarter. So the reason I'll point that out to you is as part of our budget reduction plan, it was holding positions vacant. And so you're seeing those positions vacant in the salaries and wages and benefits piece. The other piece I wanted to point out to you that is different, you look at facility rentals and utilities, only at 13.8% of our budget. Long story, but we were given a budget figure in the calculations back in December for our rent rates. And we had a lot of long discussions trying to get a lot of information about it and didn't find out until after we actually got our first quarter bill that it was half of what we expected it to be. And Linda did some confirmation to make sure that that was actually the correct rate. And so we will trend favorably on our rent and utilities throughout the year, which is good because that's our other part of our budget reduction scenario. Since we had that already placed into the budget, we'll be able to realize that savings. The rest of the expenses are also very low behind. Just as I said, it's all due to that we're not spending funds because we're doing a lot of things virtually. So we're not out traveling. Professional development has pretty much come to a halt. And just a lot of the expenses for program supplies and expenses along those lines have held down pretty low. We did not do a first quarter draw from the foundation, and we have one prepared. It's probably going to be about $5,000, so fairly low. But again, we're trending pretty good through the first quarter, and we'll continue to revise our budget to adjust for the changing scenario due to the quarantine and limited exposure we're having with visitors. Any questions I can answer about the budget, Linda? Did I hit everything?
Okay, any questions anyone may have or comments regarding the financial report? And Scott and his staff, I think, have done a great job in migrating and moving through the areas that have to be adjusted to take care of this. Cynthia, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Is the reason for the lack of draw on the foundation funds because of the lack of programming? Is that why?
Some of it's most often what we tend to do is not make our draw on the foundation. And we're trying to be intentional. We will be intentional and do it each quarter. But unless we're really utilizing the funds, and that typically doesn't happen until the third and fourth quarter, we would see the biggest draws happening in the third and fourth quarter. But right now it is suppressed because a lot of educational funding would have been drawn in this quarter. Field trips from the Libby Jones Scholarship Fund, that didn't happen. And I'm trying to remember the other great big one. Oh, we have some fellowships and internships that would have been drawn at this point. Those are coming back. We're going to figure out how to get those done, but because of the time of the planning and just the timing of things, we didn't award the fellowship. Couldn't do on-site research, so we haven't had those expenses come out yet.
And then the one other question is why we couldn't use that rent reduction against this budget reduction we were asked for.
We are.
Okay, we didn't see it in your memo. I just saw the salaries.
Yeah, no. When we factored that back in, if you all recall, the governor and the advice we were getting was to plan for anywhere between a 16 to 29% budget reduction. And so immediately we went into the year of holding positions open and had come up with a plan, not necessarily to get to the full 16%. We were trying to figure out how that was going to happen. Then we were asked, and that's actually the next agenda item I have to talk about or just to make you aware of, it did go out in an email to you all. We were asked to submit a draft and preliminary 8% budget reduction plan, which has not been enacted yet. But again, since I'd shared this out with the full board, I wanted to make sure we circled back in case there were questions. The primary piece of this was keeping positions vacant. I think the numbers are escaping me. I've been thinking of too many numbers today. But we held almost 14 positions open, most of them part-time and interim kind of positions. But we've held 2 director level positions open for quite some time, and various other ones. So we're able to keep this, to propose this 8% reduction by continuing to hold some positions open and operating expense reductions, which would have came in the form of the rent utilities and other areas. So I wanted to mention that in case there was additional questions, Cynthia, and others on the 8% budget reduction plan.
Hey, Scott, one just follow-up question. I believe in the minutes said that your staff was at a head count of about 43.
Correct.
Is it still holding at 43?
That's 43, and that's with everybody. That's with our foundation. I mean, we're trying to think holistically about all the different fund sources that are supporting staffs here. So 43 is the total complement of the state-funded positions. Were 41. And again, those are a good portion of some interims. When we scroll down through, I think I've got some information on the staffing numbers through Tony that I can circle back to them if need be. Any other questions on the budget or the 8% scenario? I will call out real quickly, the team is doing a great job. They understood the challenge in front of us, and they have held down expenses tremendously. But on the same end, we're trying not to ask for the money that we need to keep operating and keep doing. I think they can all attest for you. We are busy. It is not that we're just sitting here waiting for things to do. And I can get into more of this later, but we are busy. And so the expenses, they're doing a really good job of holding them in check, but we're also going after the things that we need to do.
Scott, has it been accepted and implemented, the
has
reduction?
It has not been. And I don't believe Secretary Barry is on the call with us, but at one point, he is on the call. We were, and we're holding it. We're holding our numbers because the longer we go into the fiscal year, the harder it would be for us to make them up if we don't continue to hold those pieces. But it has not been, and I believe there has been some favorable revenue reporting. And so where that number is going to end up falling out. Plus, we're also waiting to hear how the state is able to utilize CARES Act funding, either through the interpretation or the addition of support to the states from the federal government. So I think those two factors or three factors actually are kind of holding this on a pause on whether they're going to implement this reduction or not.
Okay. Any other questions anyone may have or comments? We do need to take action on this to accept and receive the financial report that's presented to us. Let's see. And Coleman, can you hear me, Coleman?
Yes, I
Okay,
can.
Coleman. Yeah, oh, there you are. Yeah, I knew for a moment I didn't have you listed on here, but Coleman, do you have a question or a comment you'd like to offer?
Oh, no. I was saying hello to Teresa had said hello. I was saying hello as well. So no, I'm just on mute because I've got my 2-year-old in the car.
Okay, great. I just saw it popped up there, a comment from Coleman. I understand. It popped up there, a comment from Coleman, and I just wanted to make sure if you had something else to offer. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, if there's nothing else, is there a motion offered to receive and accept the financial report presented?
This is Coleman, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Jennifer has seconded the motion. Any discussion? Okay, if there is none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand, whatever is necessary.
Aye.
Okay, aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
we have majority in favor. No opposed, so the motion carries. Scott, you did allude and mention some about the budget reduction. Other comments you wish to offer or say about that, the 8% reduction?
Just other than, I think we've got a good plan in place and I feel really comfortable with it. So, I mean, should that come to fruition, we've got our plans in place that we can continue the work that we're doing. And we've made several adjustments, whether through the pandemic or what have you, that we can continue forward with that.
Okay, great. All right. Scott, you want to continue on and maybe talk about the strategic plan?
Yes, sir. I won't go over it. I sent it out. I apologize. I didn't get it out as early as I had hoped to. What I have to you is a director's report, actually, and it follows along the lines of what we have talked to you previously about priorities and strategies. But the team, we've added in some goal statements that we're trying to achieve, and we have put our reporting information of each of the teams under that kind of format. Since I didn't give you a lot of time to look it over, I would be happy to take questions about it now, but also myself and any of the team would be happy to answer questions you might have about any of the activities and programs that are going on to help support these strategies. You will see this become our standard reporting format coming out to you. You should also, just as a way of not sending out a specific director's report each month, if you're not on the list to get the KHS Insider, it's probably our best tool right now to keep you up to date as to what's going on in the agency. I'll pause. Is there any questions I can answer about information in the director's report? We're going to hit some of the highlights here in a minute.
Scott, I have a question about the Insider.
Mhm.
I think at various times, sometimes it's been sent digitally and sometimes it's been mailed. What is the distribution now and how often?
Right now we're doing monthly and it is jumped back to just being an email version.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions regarding strategic plan? Then Scott, anything you wish to offer regarding staffing and personnel?
Sure. If you scroll through the combined packet, you'll see a pretty standard personnel update. So a lot of movement have been going on. We did not receive an NEH grant. And so therefore we had 2 staff positions that were grant time limited that have exited. I'm happy though, I got the paperwork before we got on the call that Sarah Haywood is actually going to join us back on supported through general funds in a full-time position, doing a split job, working on the Civil War Governors of Kentucky project and also helping us with the research library activities. So we'll be bringing somebody back on. Carl Creason, also on the Civil War Governors project, has resigned, and that's the position that Sarah is filling. And Jeff Dykus has also resigned his position, effective just last week. We have 4, I thought we had 5. Oh no, Sarah's was one of them. 4 active searches going on, one for a full-time registrar, and then a full-time online access administrator, which was Jeff Dykus' old position. That position is critical for us just because Jeff was doing a lot of the coordination between the online database work that the collections and research teams utilized and how it interfaces with our public elements. And then also how it interfaces with a lot of the other team databases. So as you all know, I'm not a technology person. So Jeff was able to speak both museum speak and technology speak, and finding that is not going to be easy, but it is a really critical position for us to have. We get a lot of support from the cabinet from Charles Higginbotham, but building out that team of technology people, as many of you heard me say, it's almost like having an additional wing to your building. I mean, you just need that kind of support to be able to keep all the programs that we've been doing virtually up and running. We also maintain, I want to keep this in front of you, these are the vacancies that we're holding as we go forward. I will be pushing to fill some of these because we just have the need for them, but this is within our 8% budget reduction plan by holding those vacancies. Anthony, to your point, so our current staff is 36 full-time, 3 part-time and interim. We still have 1 federally funded, and then we have a few, actually, that's graduate editorial assistantships, a graphic designer. We also have a couple of other UK students on foundation funding to help us with some things and some internships. Volunteer hours are down, obviously, because we haven't had volunteers in the building, but we've started bringing them in pending they go through the training for our COVID and healthy at work scenarios, and making sure that we're doing it responsibly as we bring them back in. We also still have virtual volunteers that are working to help us with process of collections and community outreach. And then I always want to keep this in front of you too. The chart at the next part of that report just shows you the progression of back in 2009 when I first started, actually in 2008, we were almost up to 100 staff combined, if not over, and now we're down to the 43 or so that we currently have, which is lower than what we were 20 years ago than when they opened this building. So it drives from the point that being completely general funded dependent upon staff is going to be a liability, and we have to figure out a way to turn that corner so that we're able to invest in Kentucky history in the way we need with our personnel. I mean, these are professionals that you don't find anywhere. So how do we help and grow and maintain this professional pool of Kentucky historians? It's going to be important as we continue our work. And I believe that is my report, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hyde.
Okay, Doug, time for you, the foundation.
All right. Hello, everyone. Greetings from your foundation, right upstairs from Scott. We had a great board meeting this morning. We did a hybrid of in person and Zoom, and it worked out pretty well. And it was so good to reconnect with folks in person, even with social distance. Really awesome development came out of that meeting, keyword development, the board has agreed to put together a development committee inside of our foundation board. So we're going to double down on really looking for supporting those opportunities inside KHS. And as Scott mentioned, despite COVID, despite the past 8 months, a couple things are just astounding. One, we've never been busier. I have so many different financial opportunities and items to support in my toolkit, which is a great problem to have. And our outreach has never been greater. And let me just mirror what Scott said in praise of this team. We went from a typical museum model of foot traffic and tourism dependent that was completely denied us. And in weeks, we absolutely retooled the way we do the business of history, and our virtual and social media outreach and our broadcast outreach in many ways has never been greater than now, despite this pandemic. So it really is astounding, and I'm just so proud to be a part of this extended family here. Wanted to share with you a couple of foundation led initiatives going on right now, just for your situational awareness. We have a half-hour television program, a television special that is getting ready to launch on Thursday the 29th. It's called Haunted Historic Kentucky with the Kentucky Historical Society. We have pulled together haunted and spooky artifacts from the museum floor and from archives, and we have the KHS staff sharing the legend and the lore behind them all. And we've seen this nationwide, that any museum that figures out how to monetize and how to outreach their haunted element to their collection, it always pays dividends. So it was basically born as an offshoot of the weekly news feature that I do for Channel 36 in Lexington and Channel 11 now in Louisville, Kentucky History Treasures. So it's basically sort of a big brother 30-minute special born from that. And Channel 36 has been so impressed with our content during their newscasts that they actually gave us the 7:30 p.m. time slot on Thursday night. They kicked out Access Hollywood for us, and as a lead into ABC primetime programming, which is absolutely unheard of. So I dare say in 10 years plus, I don't think this organization's had that kind of platform or that kind of length of content. So that's on the Lexington side. We thought Louisville was going to, even though they're using our weekly features, we thought it was going to be a pass from them. I'd offered them the show, and they wanted me to buy infomercial airtime for $5,000 or $6,000. I said, why don't we just show you the show, and I know you're going to love it and you'll use it next year. Well, they got jealous, and they called me yesterday, said, we've seen the promos running, we've seen the print ads running, and we are prepared to give you the entire 9 a.m. Great Day Live newscast. It's going to be the entire hour is going to the Kentucky Historical Society. So the first half hour will be pretty extensive interviews with Scott and myself. Scott's going to be talking about how programs like this and how virtual outreach, like what we've been doing, is absolutely critical for museums to stay relevant, to stay alive in the time of COVID. He's also going to explain that we are open for business and that all precautions are in place. And then I'll go over, tease the show and the content of the show, and then the half hour will run. So again, another just mind-blowing moment where, a big station and a big market literally is not doing their 9 a.m. mid-morning news and giving it to the Kentucky Historical Society. And I mean, after a 30-year career in broadcasting, I cannot emphasize enough how unusual and amazing this is for us. So between the two markets, we're going to be reaching just over 1 million Kentucky television households. So yeah, really excited about it. And I'm going to send out some promos and some links to the press release and things to our governing board and our foundation board, so you can all kind of get into the Halloween spirit with this thing. And we're really excited, and we're hoping that it pushes the ball forward in a lot of ways. Oh, by the way, we also got it paid for. I found 2 underwriters that made considerable donations to the foundation, and it didn't cost us anything. In fact, we made a little for y'all. So good news there too.
Wow.
The next item I wanted to mention, and this might come up a little later with in department briefs. We've been kicking around, ideas for 2021 exhibits that might be easy and affordable for us to do, things that we would want to do, things that would be COVID proof in case things don't go our way and restrictions stay in place. So I wanted to let you know that we've opened up a dialogue with Honor Flight Kentucky out of Lexington, and they have 2 flights scheduled in 2021. They have an April flight with 75 Kentucky veterans on board, and the last 4 Kentucky World War II veterans on their roll. So this will most likely be the last time World War II Kentucky vets fly to our nation's capital. They also have an April flight, which is the very first all-female Kentucky veteran flight. They have 75 Kentucky female vets. They have 75 female attendants to go with them, and the Delta crew on the flight is all female. So that's pretty cool. The idea is that KHS is going to be a stop a day or 2 before this flight, where these veterans and their guardians and their family members will come here. They'll get a VIP tour of the Military History Museum, perhaps a reception, perhaps a dinner, if budget allows and if COVID allows. And they've also offered us 2 seats on each of these flights for one of our historians and a videographer to go to capture these veterans, these Kentucky veterans' stories at our nation's, their monuments in DC, which is our mission. That'll go into our oral history program. So we're kicking around ideas of how we can, pull out archives from all of our Kentucky military archives and do a pop-up display. The possibilities are endless. And I've also found a family foundation that's very, very interested in underwriting as big of a footprint as we can do, or as COVID will allow. So this could be huge. I mean, if you've ever attended an honor flight return party at the airport, they draw a crowd of several thousand people. So wouldn't that be nice to see that kind of number, if we are COVID free at that point, inside and outside our building, to celebrate these Kentucky veterans and for us to honor them and their history. So this is all still very much drawing board stuff, but all the right pieces, parts seem to be coming together. So I wanted to just kind of give you a big picture for situational awareness that come April, May, June, we'd love to, be in the business of honoring these veterans and their families and their history. So what else can I share with you? You're going to hear, I'm sure, from Jody about a Frankfurt community outreach we're doing with Frankfurt High School. I'll leave that to Jody to explain to you a little more, but we're basically donating space in the building for these kids that are displaced and don't have anywhere to go. But there is a cost to that, and we weren't prepared for that cost. So that cost either comes out of the budget or the foundation finds it, so that it doesn't impact KHS. So again, something we've got out on the streets looking for. The virtual field trips as well, Jody might be able to speak to this. They've been, wildly successful. Teachers are asking for them more and more. And we're also looking for an underwriter that can help us maybe produce them to a little higher quality of video production. We're doing a great job right now, but I mean, it's basically one of our educators wandering through the museum with a guy in his camera phone following him. We'd like to, beef these up with B-roll and real education moments, but there's a cost to that too. And so the foundation's working to try to figure out how to underwrite producing 4 virtual field trips to a little higher end for all of our educators out there. So much more on the drawing board. It really is an exciting time, and despite the list of things that got canceled this year or may or may not come back this year. But again, tip of the hat to our National History Day folks who figured out how to go virtual and are still kicking. And annual meeting and history awards are going to be virtual this year too. So we're here supporting you every step of the way, and my door and email is always open for help, for suggestions. We appreciate working with y'all.
Thanks so much, Doug. Sounds like there's some exciting things going on there. That's great. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, any questions anyone has for Doug?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Doug,
sure.
Are there any ways to make the programming on the Louisville and Lexington stations accessible to folks in the western and eastern ends of the state?
Absolutely. We can definitely do that, and time just didn't permit this year. But what we're hoping is that this show is evergreen. Both stations will want to run it again next Halloween, and by that time we hope to have a Paducah TV and a Bowling Green TV partner with us on those. And I think once they see the big markets, find success with it, and once they see that, Louisville and Lexington basically gave us incredible time slots, because they have skin in the game here too. If their commercials in our show don't perform, they're in trouble. So it puts skin in the game for the TV stations to even promote above and beyond what our expectations were for these programs. So I think if that model works, it'll be a slam dunk to figure out who we're going to work with in Paducah and Bowling Green.
Are there any options for some online platforms? There are people who live in pockets in Kentucky who are in weird media markets, and I'm in one. I tell people all the time, Nashville is the state capital of Western Kentucky because we are so cut off from most media markets in Kentucky.
That makes sense. I'll tell you what, Jennifer, let me talk to our folks here. We want to give 36 and 11 their due, rolling
Right.
these out, but I don't see why we can't figure out a way to hang this on Vimeo or YouTube or something, over the Halloween weekend, for folks to enjoy it, through that way, and then maybe keep it up there for a limited amount of time so that it still comes back fresh relatively next year. I don't know if I'd want to leave it up there all year, but I certainly want to address the fact that there are, we're the Kentucky Historical Society. So yeah, we got to figure out how to get it to everybody.
We also talked about having that in northern and eastern Kentucky as well.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But wouldn't you be able to watch it on those stations streaming, like online?
I hope so. I never hang my hat on that, Cynthia. They don't seem to have that dialed in 100% of the time, but I hate to promote it, but technically, in theory, yes, you should be able to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, great. Okay, Jessica, I think you have some info to share with us, and we'll turn it to you.
I sure do. I'll try to keep it brief, but I'll hit the high points, and the rest of what I've got to report you can find in Scott's director's report. You all may know I also direct the Reopen from COVID task force, and I'm happy to report that we are in our final phase with the reopening of the Old State Capitol and the Kentucky Military History Museum, and both have seen great attendance since they've been open, making up about 30% of the attendance we received in September. So we know that people are very glad to have those open. And we're also moving toward facility rentals and welcoming groups in of a certain size. We've worked very closely with our friends at the cabinet to make sure we are in line to do that. And all of it is scaffolded to be able to scale back as directed. So we're really glad to see the return of all operations, at least at some level. Does anyone have any questions about reopening before I move on? Good, I've answered all the questions. One of the things that we really tried to do with and on a strategic level at leadership is assess the relationships that we currently have and how best to use them in this pivoted business model. We've had such success and increased reach through our virtual offerings, our virtual programming, and our relationships with television, with Doug and the foundation. So one of the things that we've done is start working much more closely with our cabinet. And I'm glad Secretary Barry is still on the call for me to be able to say that working with Danielle Jones, the executive director, and Anita Hatchett, the creative director, they have really helped our marketing and communication department in ways that are really fruitful. For one, not only are we getting statewide distribution, we even had a lot of national pickup on the AP with their delivery on certain press releases. It has also helped other organizations in our cabinet. We've kind of streamlined the offerings that we have for the public. And it's even led to search engine optimization for our website. So we're really coming up first in a lot of and some little tweaks that we made internally. So our visibility and our awareness is definitely growing. We just want to make sure that we have the structure to be able to leverage that once it comes out on the other side. Another one of those great relationships that we've had is with the payment processor for a state government, which is Kentucky Interactive. They take all the online payment services, and they were able to use the Fish and Wildlife platform of permits and licenses to help use the same technology for our online store. So we can now put our merchandise up online, and it is now selling, or it will sell once it debuts. I believe we're on a November 1st date, but the point of that is to get our merchandise sales outside of Frankfort, the store, and throughout the state of Kentucky. So just by utilizing those close relationships that we have with our friends in the cabinet and for those that work for state government, we've really been able to take things to another level. We are also joining forces with the foundation side. Dana and I are helping them really kind of understand where we are with our membership. And we're seeing some trends. We've definitely seen growth this year with members. We've added some new ones, but we're also seeing a lapsing rate about 3 times the size of the new ones that we bring in. So we're really going to look at the renewal process and how we retain our members, so we can really start to build a pipeline of a new generation of donors and those invested in Kentucky history. I will say, I think that's about it. I'm going to check my notes, but thank you for those. I had 3 people tell me they don't get the insider, so we will make sure that you receive it. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Anybody have any questions for Jessica? Okay, thank you so much. Jody, we'll let you give us a report on museum programs.
Okay, terrific. I will, excuse me, echo what all of my colleagues here have said about the retooling our programs for virtual delivery and how that has impacted both accessibility and reach. Before I get to that, I want to talk about the on-site program that Doug mentioned, the partnership with the Frankfort High School. Actually, it's their senior mentorship mission activity that they do every year, which involves internships, community service. It's just a wonderful, holistic approach to preparing these seniors for going out into the world. And that's difficult to do when it's a virtual program. And so we had begun speaking with Frankfort Independent Schools back in July to see how we here at KHS could help solve whatever issues they were facing. At the time, we thought maybe we would be a satellite location, if you will, for virtual learners. There was a thought at one point that the students who needed more academic help would stay on site in the high school, but because of physical distancing requirements, that wouldn't allow the more independent learners, the higher achievers, to be on site. So an early iteration was we would be the home for that. That's transitioned into us serving this senior class. So those seniors will be here on site in our Brown Foreman room 2 times a week for about an hour and a half. There'll be 2 groups of students, about 26 in each group, which is great. We're so looking forward to seeing students again and serving students again, and not only providing a space, but being a professional mentor as well, and introducing them to maybe some career options they hadn't thought of before. Of course, when they're back in Brown Foreman, that means that that we can't rent out the space, our biggest money-making space. And so that's what Doug was speaking to earlier about trying to get some underwriting of that program so that we could help serve this community that we so want to connect more strongly with. So that's the Frankfurt High School program. If anybody has any questions about that, I'd be happy to take those now. If not, I'm going to jump into virtual programming because, of course, most students will not be given the opportunity to visit the KHS campus. And so we've really been looking at how to retool the experience that students get here, flip-flop it into a virtual format. All of our virtual programs have been well received, but our teacher programs have absolutely exploded. Our Kentucky History Educator Conference that happens in July went from about an average of 180-ish to over 300 registrants this year. A workshop that we just developed in partnership with on Frankfurt's Focus on Race Relations. I always stumble over that name. Focus on Race Relations drew over 200 registrants. It was just the interest has been incredible. We're hoping that all those teacher initiatives will translate into virtual field trips too. So we have the typical experience. There are about 4 different programs that we're offering, and then we also have developed a new program for teachers of grades 8 through 12, which we're calling Host a Historian, where there are 4 different themes: manifest destiny, Civil War emancipation, civil rights and racial justice, and one we're calling Coal in Appalachia, industrialization, activism, and identity. And that would be an exercise with an educator, and then a discussion, a little presentation, a short presentation, about 15 minutes, with one of our 4 historians here, 4 of our historians are here, and then some interaction with those historians and the students themselves. And that's gotten a lot of interest. We have a lot of people interested in both those virtual field trips and the Host a Historian. And those themes are really resonating as well, equally resonating. And I think one of the reasons is because they have such a relevance. They're all relevant to what's happening today. And so I guess that's the other thing I'd like to highlight as you look through the director's report and the museum programs. I think you're going to see that a lot of the programming that we're offering is addressing the issues of right now, whether that's struggle for racial justice and the uprisings that we've seen in relation to that, or whether it's COVID, which I know John Wolford will talk about later, I'm sure, with the Oral History Commission, and a wonderful collecting initiative that our Oral History Commission is doing. But I'm really proud, I just echo what everyone has already said, I'm really proud of the work that we're doing, and it's tricky, and there's a big old learning curve between being engaging in person and engaging online, but I think we're doing a great job with it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions either now, or y'all have my contact info.
Tony, I wanted to follow up on something you said, just to give ourselves a plug, and I think Scott may have mentioned it already, but just talking about facility use and the need that we're giving the schools and the Brown-Forman room. Since we all met last, not only has the governor been here and Dr. Deborah Birx, and obviously the Attorney General has also used us. So I think that doing the best we can has really shown how essential and how much people need the work that we're doing right now. And I just wanted to make sure that we gave Scott the credit on that one, that, you know, it's been a heavy quarter and we've met the challenge.
Jody, this is Tip Richmond. I've got a follow-up question. If you said this, I apologize. I didn't understand it. But on all this virtual learning and going to the importance of metrics, do you measure how many participants you have in each virtual learning event, and you keep a record of that so that we can go back and look at 6 months or a year from now what the trend line is and how effective that is, and is it a growing part of our business?
Yes, that's a great point. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. We do absolutely. You know, and even on the front end, we develop all of our programs with the Kentucky academic standards in mind. So we know that the information we're giving out, the programs we're developing, are exactly what teachers need. And we're very careful to record all of that, the attendance, the participation. We always follow up with surveys, yeah, so there's evaluation and data gathering. I am all about data as well, so I appreciate you being a fellow champion of that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure.
And I think as a part of the director's report in the future, or once we have a little history on this, I think that should be a metric that's reported every meeting, Scott.
Great point. Will do.
Okay. Any other questions anyone has? Comments? Okay, thank you so much for the report. Next, we'll turn to our Director of Research and Collections, Stuart Sanders. And Stuart, welcome.
Thanks, Judge Turner, and good afternoon, everybody. And just as a reminder, the Research and Collections team includes the library, the archives, the museum collection, publications, and also our Civil War Governors of Kentucky Digital Documentary Edition project. And you know, as everyone mentioned, we've sort of seen growth in terms of our virtual outreach as well, and sort of the footprint of our online engagement. In the past quarter, everything from the number of our paid research requests has gone up. We've had about 758 of those in the last 3 months. We've had more than 123,000 views of our online museum collection. We've had also more than 55,000 views of our publications, including the Register of the Kentucky Historical Society articles in that journal, and then also Kentucky Ancestors Online, and then our Civil War Governors project as well. So we are seeing, you know, very steady engagement on this virtual platform that we've got. In coming months, we're going to see those numbers continue to rise, I think, especially when it comes to genealogy and family history programming. We have a $10,000 CARES Act that we've been using to buy some more video equipment and other technology in order to continue to pivot our family history programming and put more of that online. So I think, you know, again, as Tip mentioned, we'll see a rise in that sort of engagement, that sort of programming as well. Our staff is doing a lot of outreach. In addition to that, our Civil War Governors project, those staff members are doing a lot of public programs. We've got a great relationship with WEKU and their Eastern Standard interview program, and we continually connect with members of our editorial advisory board from the Register of the Kentucky Historical Society and register authors and get them on that program too, which has been really helpful and sort of showcases the broader connections we have across the state.
Real quick, not to interrupt you, but can you talk a little bit about that? Because I don't know, some of our board members, particularly those probably out west, don't realize the reach that WEKU gets us.
Yeah, WEKU is the NPR station out of Eastern Kentucky University, and they've got an hour interview program that airs once a week called Eastern Standard, and it tends to delve into issues that affect Eastern Kentucky in particular. And they've got a great reach that runs literally from the far eastern corner of the state, past Danville and beyond, you know, sort of more toward Washington County too. So, you know, they've got a great footprint in terms of their listenership, and it's been a wonderful opportunity that the Register has had to connect them with historians, with some of our staff members too, to connect essentially of current events and give a historical context to those events. And we're going to see a lot more of that. The next issue of the Register, which will be coming out in November, is solely focused on Appalachian history. And it's going to have a big sort of modern history focus. It'll include everything from activism to the environment and education and more. And so we're going to see a lot more engagement with the Eastern Standard when that issue comes out as well. So does that answer it, Scott, for you?
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. We're also making collections more accessible too. Our archivist, Dina Thomas, and Casey Castro Bracco, who also works on the team, are doing a blog series to highlight a wonderful family scrapbook collection we have that includes 60 scrapbooks that date from essentially the early to mid 20th century. And so that blog series has been popular, and it's been great to have those up. We're continuing to loan museum collections out, and it's sort of a more limited basis than we had before, but that's continuing. We have several items in the Fraser's new Cool Kentucky exhibit, including the evening gown that Heather French Henry wore when she was Miss America too. So we're happy to sort of pass that along to the Fraser for a while and let people enjoy that. We're also currently negotiating a potential exhibit with the Kentucky Center for African American Heritage in Louisville. It's going to be part of our Hamilton barbershop collection. And that's probably progressing pretty forward. We're really excited about that. And it's opening up new avenues of partnerships with that organization too. So we're also working on conserving our collections. We're researching grants and some fundraising to raise money to restore the 1950s Liberty Bell replica that we have. And we're sort of doing that in preparation for the US 250th coming up in 2026. That's going to be about a $5,000 project. So we're trying to make collections more accessible. We're getting our staff out a lot more. We're also working on conserving a lot of the collections that we have as well. And, you know, again, finally, I just want to reiterate that we've got that great issue of the Register coming out. And the actual title of that is Beyond the War on Poverty, Appalachia Post-1970. And again, that's going to focus on a lot of issues of modern relevance and have a good contemporary history focus. So we'll let you guys know when that is out. I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide more information.
We're going to put you on the spot. A couple questions came into the chat and some things I just want to make sure that the governing board is aware of. Can you talk about the COVID-19 collecting initiative, oral history initiative?
Well, the oral history initiative would be Jody.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I'd be happy to, but I don't want to steal John's thunder. John?
Well, I could speak now if you like, or I could take appointed time.
I'll let you come back to that, but there's a question on the table of what are we doing to collect current initiatives? And so obviously COVID-19 has been a collecting initiative for us. So, I mean, it spans multiple teams here from oral history to collections and archives. And we've been working with several different groups to do that. And before I turn the mic back over, the other thing I wanted to address was, you know, we are very aware of our role in helping the Commonwealth think about racial inequality and social injustice and systemic racism. And it's not that we're coming at it from a point that we're talking about who's right or wrong in this thing. We know that our history and even the way we collect history, I mean, we've acknowledged this for some time, but maybe haven't been the most proactive about it, is that we tend to collect in a lopsided way. So how do we actively look forward to the programs and the things that we do, and how do we share that process with other Kentuckians? The other piece I want to say to the staff and to you all as well is I appreciate your patience with us. It's been an interesting time for us to not just be a site for announcements or for press conferences and things like that. We're really thankful. Having the governor here for the 3 weeks doing the COVID-19 updates have led to, he literally, I think I've said this to some of the staff, so if I've repeated it, every time I see him, he leans into me and says, Scott, I'm bringing Kentucky history here. And so, and this has not been, when Secretary Berry first started, we talked about this initiative of our board that said, hey, we need to make sure that this governor is involved in Kentucky history. He has an interest in Kentucky history, as well as a lot of us across the political spectrum. That relationship is bringing these kind of things to KHS to let us serve as the backdrop of how we wrestle with these very difficult subjects in these difficult times. So hats off to all of you and hats off to my team for quite honestly rolling with a changing environment that, just last week I was saying, I think this is the first week that we didn't have to deal with some sort of curveball coming in. And it was kind of a nice change of pace for us. but they've really responded well to the call to do that, and we look forward to more of them. So I know I speak on several. I have one that Dr. Lee's helping me with right now on some issues, and that's what we're here for. So I wanted to make sure that we talk about that. We are, Coleman, looking at how we collect both this current events, both on the social justice element and the COVID-19 and pandemic element. Yeah.
Scott, I can add too. You know, we have a collections committee that is talking about a lot of these issues. We've actually already had some donations. Some of the distilleries have donated, you know, the hand sanitizer that they've made during the pandemic, for example. We've had some PPE and other medical equipment donated as well. So I know the National Guard has given us some things too. So, you know, we are thinking about sort of current collecting and you know, what does it mean to collect during this pandemic and what sort of things should we be collecting? Because several years ago, I was doing some research on the 1918 flu pandemic and the collections that we had as part of that. And, you know, I was able to see some of the holes we had in our collection related to that. So I'm trying to think, you know, I wish that people in 1918 at KHS had sort of thought about, you know, collecting items then during that pandemic. And so I think, you know, we have that hindsight in a sense where we're able to do a little bit of current collecting and get some things in that pertain to the current pandemic.
And one last thing, and Jody, I want to ask you to maybe share it to the chat to everybody, but immediately, oh gosh, I can't remember even when we started this, the realization that we have already produced a fair amount of resources to talk about racism and social justice and systemic racism, but yet it was spread all over the place. And so the team aggregated it into one place, made one link from our website, which was just shared with you all. Feel free to share it with folks. There's a lot of great resources there. And it's not just our resources. We need to be looking at resources that are being developed across the Commonwealth. There's a lot of great work being done out there. And part of our strategic priority is to be a leader and making sure that everybody else knows that that's out there. So we don't have to own it, but if we can share it and bring it together, I think it just helps rise all ships in the effort. So I'll be quiet at that point, Judge Turner, and take any questions, and then we'll turn it back over.
Okay. Anyone have any questions regarding Stuart's report or for Scott or for any of the staff right now before we move on? Okay, thank you. Into our old business matters, the bylaws committee, that's kind of been an ongoing effort. Scott and I talked about this the other day. Scott, anything you want to address regarding that right now?
Other than again doing the just couldn't get it done this quarter for you all, but we do have to revisit this, mainly because it just clears up how we can form committees and get you all more actively involved in the areas that you're passionate and interested in. So in fairly short order, I'll get with Judge Turner and we'll figure out how to get it into the bylaws so that we can form these committees. But be looking for each member of this leadership team that you already heard from. We'll probably be reaching out to individuals because again, just in hearing you talk now and the questions you ask, we know that you have certain areas that cover the whole breadth of what we do, whether it's research, whether it's museum programs, whether it's markers and outreach, oral history. We want to make sure that we're taking the best advantage, not just of your time, but of your talents as well. So we'll be doing that, and that'll be so again, we get it done this quarter, but we will circle back and get that bylaws committee and subsequent committee organization arranged so that we can be more productive with that.
Scott and I have had some discussion. Oh, is there a question here? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump ahead there. Any question over the bylaws? Okay. I just wanted to mention that Scott and I have had some discussion about our historical marker program and what we have there. And of course, the historical markers are something that every community takes tremendous pride in. They really look to those as a part of their community that they can showcase the history of their community, important events, important individuals, what makes their community stand out. The historical markers do that. But in most cases, the responsibility in the community's eyes fall back on us when something happens. Those markers in many cases need to be refurbished. and in many cases restored. Some of those markers are getting a lot of age on them now. And some, if you have noticed, as I have, some are almost illegible unless you were standing within just a foot or two of them to make out what the wording is on them. Also, we have the problem of those markers getting damaged. Many of them are located near highways and traffic ways, and as a result, it's not an unusual situation for them to get hit by a car or a truck. In some cases, they can be covered by insurance if it is known who did it. But in a lot of cases, no one knows. It happens in the middle of the night. Someone swerves off the road, knocks them over, drives back up on the road and drives off. And in the morning, somebody finds a historical marker laying on the side of the road in pieces. So, there's a lot of things that we really need to talk about regarding these. I'm not sure this meeting is going to be the format where we can discuss all these issues, because we would probably be on here for the next hour or two discussing just this matter. But I have told Scott, my personal feeling is that we need to try to work hard on trying to get more community ownership of these. And me, from the area and background that I come from, I think I can be a plus in trying to urge communities to do this. I think the cost of restoration of these markers is something that we should really work on the local communities to pitch in on that effort to do it. I think the establishment of the markers when they are broken or damaged, that should be looked at. And I've even just preliminarily had some discussion with the insurance carrier for most counties. It covers all counties but 2 or 3, about the possibility, can counties actually insure these markers in some way, where if one gets damaged, that they can pay a $100 deductible or whatever and get that marker replaced. And there is a possibility of that. So we're working on several avenues and angles. And I didn't mean, Scott, to rush ahead. I just wanted to go on and spill all that out there, because that covered a lot of our discussion. And I'll turn it over to you now for some of the thoughts that you've had on them.
Sure. On the last page of the packet that we sent out this morning, it's just kind of some things that I developed actually a year ago. We've been thinking about a more formalized program. Good or bad, current events have forced us into, this is a higher priority for us. If I haven't said this in the past, let me just reiterate, the leadership team and I have taken on 4 content areas that we think are very important. And you've heard about these already today: Kentucky military history, family history and genealogy, Kentucky history education, and the historic markers program. Probably our most visible outreach piece is this markers program. A lot of people don't associate it as being ours, but they all know it, and they all see it that's out there in the associated website and phone app that go along with it. Typically, as Judge Turner pointed out, and what we talked about a year ago, was we have this backlog of broken or damaged markers that are down. Some 200 markers are down. Various reasons why they can't be put back up. And even if we did say we're going to put all 200 back up, there's not capacity at a foundry. The cost would be prohibitive. It would probably take us close to 20 years just to clear that backlog, just as things are right now. Now we need to add in this idea of some of these marker programs go back to the 1940s. The language that's on those markers was the language of the time, the interpretation of the time. So the team is undertaking a fairly ambitious task, I will say, of the 2,600 markers we have out there, a complete audit of those markers and coming up with what are some review criteria that doesn't necessarily take on the task of changing them, but at least identifying if we need to have further investigation into this marker. Is it containing inaccurate information, false information, or is it actually just hurtful and hateful information that we put out there that might consider us to change it? Before we put up any marker, that should be our policy to conduct this review with that marker. Then the added piece that we haven't experienced before is communities calling us and calling into question those exact same topics, that they have concerns about this marker. For a program that is rooted in community consensus that this history was important to be told, it really is difficult to undo that. And so what would a process look like to consider an application to review a contested marker? And it's not as easy as it sounds. Quite honestly, I think this brings it in line with, it was very easy to look at statuaries and monuments and things like that and understand completely their role. But markers across the country, this isn't a Kentucky specific thing. My colleagues across the country are wrestling with these robust marker programs and how they deal with this. The number of markers that were produced in the 1960s and how many of them are really aimed at Civil War and lost cause narrative versus civil rights markers would just shock you. I don't even know if it's a tenth of the markers are civil rights markers that were produced. So going back and considering how that's impacting the marker program at all and how we want to make those changes, it's not a quick fix. And I think the idea of coming up with a good policy for this would help guide us in making changes and doing that. And again, we have a marker 67 down on the campus, or was at the campus of Western Kentucky University, rightfully so, had it removed. The university requested it. We agreed that it was in an inappropriate place at the time. Replacing that marker in another area involves us going back out to get community consensus on where it should belong. As if we don't do the work now, and it could take us up to 6 months, if we don't do the work now, it will continue to be a contested marker. And so it's just a really long process. And I think the idea of having a very clear policy and procedure on how we deal with complaints, replacements, revisions, and things like that to the program would help. Judge Turner also hit on the idea is funding. Right now, the current funding model involves basically a sponsor or somebody to come forward and raise the money and do that. It doesn't mean that it has compromised the review process for a marker on who gets a marker, but it does kind of unfairly favor folks that can have that ability to go out and do that. So we're telling the history of the people that can go out and raise the money. And I don't know if that's the right way to do this. I think that if we can find some way, if this is the important history to be told, how do we invest in our Kentucky history and make sure that it's being done in a fair and equitable way? As we come up on some things, Native American history is one that, clearly has some voids throughout the Commonwealth and could be a focus for us as we go into 2024. So again, I think coming out with a system that allows this to be not only a currently funded program, but sustainable for maintenance, repairs, and ongoing priorities will be very important an important piece to raise. It's going to be raised in our agency priority. And I've spoken with Danielle at the cabinet, and I believe that, we're going to hopefully work with them to see if we can't raise this as a larger priority across the Commonwealth.
Scott, I'm just curious, talking about the financial cost of the markers, just to create a marker and place it, what are we talking about? 3,000 plus?
3,000 is just some hard cost. That is nowhere close to our administrative time that we put into
Yeah,
it.
sure.
And then the ongoing app development. So, we have to always think of those two coinciding, is that the markers, they're visible and they're important, but it's that additional information, contextual information
Sure.
that gets applied
Yeah.
onto the app. So, right now we kind of use a ballpark figure of $3,000 to ask people to support it.
But that's just basically the cost of the materials. That's not the as you say, the staffing time and everything in the background that has to go into it. So,
Pretty much.
I
And
mean,
I'd
if
be
you looked at
remiss,
all of that, you'd probably be at least doubling that cost.
Yeah, I'd be remiss too if I don't mention that this is also a partnership with the Kentucky Department of Transportation, because they spend a lot of time going out and doing site reviews and to make sure that we place them in safe and easily accessible areas. So again, add in all that time, we're well above $6,000-7,000 probably just to have a marker placed.
Yeah. And to think we have 200 plus that are needing to be reestablished or reset due to their being broken, being damaged, or whatever. It's we're looking at a tremendous amount of money.
And I know, Judge, and I want to be mindful of time, but if you would, I would be curious if the group would maybe talk a little bit about, we do about somewhere between 20 to 30 markers a year. And I'm somewhat concerned that that's too many. If we were to reduce that number, I would wonder if that would allow us to spend more time having a deeper engagement with the communities involved, and let us put some priorities to it. Or do we feel that that number is also 20? I would say 20 a year is probably what we would average. How you feel about that? Would you participate more as board members on maybe attending marker ceremonies if we had them and help us engage the communities?
Well, my personal thought is the community. It all depends on again the community ownership and how much the community is willing to step forward to make the marker happen. We can put a cap on the number that we wish to permit a year or that sort of thing. But if you have a community that steps up and says, "Look, if it costs $8,000, we'll pay the $8,000." Then that changes the scope of things, I think, a little bit versus, oftentimes I think communities would like to see these, but they want someone else to do it for them. And I'm speaking because I come from an avenue and angle that most of you do not. So I'm speaking from reality here and what I know. But I really think this is something we should discuss, and whether we form a committee. Scott, you and I should talk about this, I guess, form a committee or a group, a working group, maybe it involves transportation and others, that we all sit down and try to come to some ideas on how we can move forward, because the problem's just going to get bigger as these markers get older, as these markers need refurbishing and more work, and the cost is not going to go down. It's just going to go up.
Scott, I am interested in how the ability to pay is affecting the stories being told, and an unintended bias against underrepresented voices. When I led an effort about 3 years ago for a marker in Hopkinsville, and I know from that experience what a big deal it is to a town when the Kentucky Historical Society shows up. It means a lot. If you want to understand the heft and respect for KHS, go to one of those, okay? Mm-hmm. But the marker that I was involved with was for an African-American journalist named Ted Poston. And most of y'all know that Hopkinsville is the most racially diverse community in Kentucky outside of Louisville and Lexington. However, Ted Poston was the first African-American person or institution that was the subject of a marker in Hopkinsville, Christian County. I think we have 21 markers now. I mean, that shouldn't happen, but it does. And
yeah,
it has a lot to do with who has the resources to go out and raise money in a community. And
that's true.
So I do have a concern about that.
Yeah,
I don't want to step on Jody's toes if you were preparing a response there, Jody, but it doesn't. So what happens is markers come in and they get reviewed and they get approved, and it isn't dependent on the funding.
And I've served on those reviews.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So just to make sure everybody else knew, so what happens though, where the holdup comes is the marker doesn't get produced, go into production until we receive the money.
Right.
Let me, Scott, I don't mean to interrupt, and Jennifer, I hate, I have had something that has popped up here that's kind of an urgent situation that's going to draw me away for a bit, and I may not be able to do this to you, but as Vice President, can I turn this over to you to finish up the meeting? I apologize. Sure. I am going to have to step away from my computer here for a few minutes, and everyone, I apologize for the situation, but maybe I'll be back to join you before it's over with, but in likelihood I may not. So thank all of you. I apologize, and we'll be chatting via the internet, email, or whatever here very soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you.
Scott, I put in the chat that I'd be willing to serve on a committee. I think that it needs to be a committee, and we may want to talk about even adding some broader voice to it as well. But it's a really important discussion. Very, very important one.
This is Geneva. I've had to join you by telephone. I'm sorry, I had an urgent and unexpected medical issue this morning, but I really want to support what Jennifer said about underrepresented communities and how trying to work on how those get funded also, so their stories, their history is included. Just wanted to support that notion strongly.
Great. Thank you, Geneva.
Scott,
You could hear me.
Scott, I find myself thinking about that 20 to 30 of these each year. I mean, that's in essence putting up one of these almost every other week all year long. I mean, that's a pretty remarkable investment. And I wonder if maybe we might be better served if we made some more targeted efforts to fill gaps that we know are there, as opposed to the 20 or 30 a year. Maybe something more strategic and intentional on our part might be a helpful next step in all of this.
Good comment. Thank you.
The one thing that comes to mind to me when in this discussion is you had mentioned the Department of Transportation having a critical role in this process. Does somebody own this individually at the Department of Transportation? And does somebody own it within KHS? Like, is it in their job description, or is it in their normal day-to-day routines and workplace to address this?
Yes, we have a marker coordinator. I actually have a couple of folks that it's pretty much part of the day today. Less so now. We stopped doing marker dedications and put it on a hold just because of COVID things, but we've started to resume. There were 2 marker dedications in the past month, I think it was. And we do. We actually communicate to each of the regional garages for transportation. So they have people regionally that go out and do the site verifications and things like that for us. And it's interesting because we've gotten to know them all by name. And so, yeah, we have a couple of targeted people for that. It also kind of elevates, though, that one of the things that I believe we could do better is once we've established that relationship with either that sponsor of the marker or the local history organization that's in the area. There's 300 and something local history organizations around the Commonwealth. Could we be better at partnering with them to help us understand more, to Judge Turner's point, of how do we have that regional or local marker coordinators that help us keep an eye on what's going on. It's almost reactive that we get phone calls of something being knocked down or removed or missing or found at times. So we do have some direct people, and we do have at least one and a half people, I guess you could say, dedicating their time on this.
Well, it's kind of like what I would suspect. It's totally owned at the KHS level, but because of the regional focus and the 300 or so organizations across the state, it's pretty difficult to wrap your hands around an effort when it's so fragmented. Tough one.
Also, I don't know if this is representative across the state, but my experience here was that the regional highway garage kind of likes doing this. And I may be naive about that, but when we did the Ted Poston marker, I met the 2 guys downtown, and they were really enjoying doing something different. And a couple of years later, when I noticed that the marker was leaning, I contacted Dr. Higgins at KHS, and within a week, somebody had responded from the state highway garage and fixed it. So I've had a good experience with the transportation cabinet as it relates, but somebody please jump in and tell me if I was.
No, they are very proud of their involvement in the program.
Okay.
That's how we've gotten to know them on almost a first name basis level. That if you call them and you tell them we got a problem, sometimes by that afternoon they're out there.
Yeah.
People get frustrated because usually we start hitting that point soon when the ground freezes, so they can't put posts in the ground. And so there's a lot of coordination that goes. Sometimes a marker won't be dedicated for weeks after it's been installed just because it's the logistics of how we can get the post in the ground. But they're very proud of their involvement.
Well, you see all these adopt the highway miles in different parts of the country. I'm sitting here thinking you got all these industrial parks in various counties throughout the state, and small businesses or medium-sized businesses that look for community service type opportunities to support the Commonwealth. What a great opportunity to maybe contact the local business units and say, hey, listen, hey, Perfection Group, you got a business down in Jessamine County or whatever it is. Would you want to support a revitalization of a couple markers? A $3,000 to $4,000 expense for a business that can do that is not a whole lot, and they're always looking for different community service type things to do.
As Scott says, it's our most visible, most identifiable program. So investment in that is really the best direction.
I agree. I like your committee idea. Because you won't get anything going unless you get some people on a committee that have strong opinions and are willing to go out and do the legwork. I enjoy it. I try to stop at all of them and look at them, and and sometimes it's dangerous to do. You pull your car over or whatever it is, but I'd be happy to assist if anybody has any ideas. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
It might be fun to do some kind of marketing campaign around the board's favorite markers. We can feature them in our KHS Insider. Just an idea.
Scott, this is Jennifer. I took the handoff from Tommy, and I'm going to admit to you, I don't even know where we are on the agenda right now, but I'm looking at it.
I'll help you out, Jennifer. If there's we welcome any other comments about the marker program. Like I said, at the end of the packet, I kind of outlined some of the things that are on my mind and action items I felt we had going forward. We will certainly add to this the formation of a committee, and I'll get with Judge Turner and figure out how to get that done pretty quickly. I'll work with Jody. She'll help me out with that. And we'll continue the conversation because again, it's something very important for us to kind of give our staff the framework so that they're getting calls. Jody, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, they're getting at least 2 calls a week, probably, or we were for a bit there.
That's right.
And it's not going to stop. I think nationwide, I'm hearing other colleagues talk about it, and they're issuing the same complete audit of all their markers to see what changes they might need to be made. So we need to get in front of this.
We're still in old business, by the way.
Okay.
Yes, and I think that was the only old business I had.
Okay. Do we have any new business before the board?
No, and when I spoke with Tommy, I just made him aware, and it's just to make you all aware, this is the typical meeting where you are reminded that you have to do an executive director performance review. And I know Constance had spent a lot of time, and I can't recall who served on that committee with Constance last time. Maybe it's just the officers, but there's an arrangement, and she had wanted to make some improvements to it. So picking up upon that process, but again, this is usually when we signal, hey, you all need to arrange a time to meet and come up with your instrument for doing a performance review.
Okay. I'll make a point to touch base with Tommy about that.
And then next on our agenda was some reports from Secretary Barry, I believe.
Yes, that's up next. Is Secretary Barry still with us?
He is. Thank you, Madam Acting Chairman.
Hey.
And Scott, good to see you. Thanks, everybody, and I'll make this very brief because I know we all have things to do on this Friday afternoon. First of all, I want to thank Scott and his team and all of those involved with KHS for being the go-to location for some of the recent announcements. Some of those I know were done very quickly. Some of those had to be done without a lot of fanfare, and some of them may have gotten us out of our comfort zone in terms of having to cede some control over how they're set up, how they're secured, et cetera. But I echo what Scott said, that the governor said, that we are bringing history to the History Center in a lot of these instances. And through your all's professionalism, if the governor wasn't already a fan, he is now, from all the hospitality and again, your all's professionalism during these events that were held at the center. From a cabinet standpoint, I wanted to thank Jessica for her comments and echo what she said, that the cabinet is working very hard to be a resource for the agencies. So many times I think people look at the cabinet as being either regulatory or oversight to the agencies, and it's almost one of those things of, I'm here from the government to help you. But we don't look at ourselves as that way, or at least that's my theory, that we just want to be a help to make you all successful and to stay out of your way unless you need the assistance. And one of the things that Danielle and her team, we have a videographer and a copywriter, photographer, social media person that Jessica referred to in our office, Anita Hatchett. They are working very hard to help us to promote the agencies, but also to build an archive of images and videos, photographs, et cetera, that can be used in social media and that are at your all's disposal as well. So if you need some good shots of, promoting the fact that the governor did some of his briefings there, et cetera, we'll have those in archives as well. And then someone mentioned the budget. Your CEO or your executive director is correct. Those budget items, I never thought I would be happy about being asked to prepare for an 8% budget cut. But when they were talking about a 39% budget cut, you almost feel like you won the lottery. But the even better news is that those have not been implemented yet. Scott was correct. We have been asked to put these plans in place in the event that they would need to be implemented for budget cuts. But at this point, the receipts, the state sales tax receipts, et cetera, have been surprisingly strong. That's the good news. As I tell folks that are in the pure tourism side of this thing, we have really had a much better summer and a longer summer than we expected, but winter's coming. And I think that all of us are looking at that and realize, even from a fiscal standpoint, in terms of state government finances, that winter is coming when perhaps we will see a continued spike in cases and a decrease in tax revenues, et cetera. So we have to be prepared for that. And just finally, let me say to you all that we are also hard at work with all of the agencies in the cabinet. It's hard to believe that I'm going to say this, but the General Assembly is coming up. Normally, this is, well, it still is a short session. It's only a 30-day session, but because of the budget, the pandemic and the crisis that was created with that, the General Assembly only passed a one-year budget last year. So in this General Assembly, that is a third of the time that last General Assembly was, they still have to do the same thing, and that is to adopt a budget. So to quote my grandmother, there's going to be 10 pounds of potatoes shoved in this 5-pound bag. over the 30 days of the General Assembly. So I know that we will all be working to follow our legislative priorities and hopefully get those accomplished as well. Again, thank you all for all you're doing. Thank you for the support of the cabinet. But again, it just is a pleasure to work with your folks, to come and visit your facilities, even when we don't bring television cameras with us. Thank you all for the great job that you all are doing, especially in communication, because I follow you on Twitter, I read about you in the paper, etc. You're also helping to lead a new mindset in the way that we look at the diversity and the diverse culture of Kentucky and how we address the social problems and the challenges that are in front of us. And that's greatly appreciated. So thank you, and everybody have a good weekend. Make sure you stay safe.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Secretary Berry? Okay, then. Up next, we have a report from the Kentucky Oral History Commission.
That is correct. Yeah, this is John Wolford. I'm a chair this year. And first, I'd just like to mention how wonderful it is to see the enthusiasm for current events, current history in the making being covered. You just don't see that in other states, in other history divisions. It's something that makes Kentucky stand out. And yes, the Kentucky Oral History Commission has been conducting, fulfilling the grant, CARES grant that we received through the Kentucky Humanities Council to have interviews done with a broad swath of Kentuckians, not just one type, but hopefully representative of different types. And the interviews have been, the interviewers have been funded, the interviews are being conducted, and some interviews have been returned already, including an interview with Virginia Moore, who is the governor's ASL interpreter and the executive director on the Commission of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, who at one time was sort of a national celebrity. And when I say the Oral History Commission has been hard at work, I'm speaking mostly of Sarah Schmidt, who is a wonder to behold. Next week is the Oral History Association, the national meeting of professional oral historians. Last year, Sarah made quite a splash there with her report on what was going on with Kentucky. And she'll be attending this year virtually as well. And currently we're adjudicating and advising the applications for fall grants. And it's just in process right now. We'll be meeting in November. I think it's November, late November. Yeah, it's right before Thanksgiving. And I'll have a fuller report on that at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Certainly.
I've become aware through my news reporting in Hopkinsville what a job the county health directors have right now. And I think they have some amazing stories to tell. So I just wanted to mention that to you.
Yeah, we wish we had more money to hand out. There are just a few, I think 10 or 12 that we could fund. But obviously there's so many more. I mean, yeah, so many.
Does anybody have any questions for John? Thank you. We're up to the Museums and Heritage Alliance. Is Tressa Brown with us?
I am.
Hey.
Good afternoon. I see that most of y'all are inside. I happen to be outside, so if you hear kind of farm noises, you'll have to bear with me. The Kentucky Museums and Heritage Alliance has been working mostly with internal issues. We have hired a admin assistant to kind of carry us through some changes to our website. We're adding some better interface and payment options on our website. We've been kind of held up in doing our elections because normally our elections would have been in June at our annual conference. And obviously we weren't able to do that. So we're kind of getting our feet back under us and expecting to do elections at the beginning of January and then from there move forward. So that's a brief report, even though we've been quite busy.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Any questions for Tressa Brown? Okay. Scott, what next?
Announcements, I think.
So we have our annual meeting, I'm assuming first time ever virtually, right?
Yes. The annual meeting will be on June 6th, and we will conduct it virtually via Zoom. I think we need to get some more logistics worked out.
November 6th,
What
not June.
I'm multitasking. You caught me. November 6th. So coming up. And for those of you, this will be obviously the induction of the swearing in of our new officers, or our new board members. And we do some kind of state of the Kentucky Historical Society pieces, but then it's always followed also by the annual Kentucky History Awards. And so that too will be virtual this year. The team has jumped out and is actually meeting in person with the award recipients and capturing video of them accepting the award or giving us a little bit more information about it. Again, this is one of those moments to where we didn't plan for it this way, but we've been talking for some time about how do we elevate our connection to the great work that's going on out there in the Commonwealth for Kentucky history. So while we don't necessarily own this as the work that we're doing, how do we recognize all the other work that's going on? So I really like
how you doing?
Being able to capture the video of these folks out there in their area. I'm also maybe going to reach out to some of you to see if you would like to record the kind of like the awards presentation.
Continuing legal education on the
So
webinars.
we're doing a little bit like a award show.
People talk on
this will be completely produced after the awards piece is over, or after the annual meeting piece is over. We will hit play on the video, and it will run starting at 7 p.m. that evening on our.
Scott, may I interrupt a second?
Yep.
Teresa, is it possible for you to mute Tip? I'm not sure he knows that he's bleeding into the conversation.
Scott, you'll need to do it since you're hosting.
It is done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so, so I think this will be not our favorite format. I mean, the annual meeting and the history awards taking place in the Old State Capitol has always been a big favorite of mine. It's one of the first things I got to do when I arrived here, and I just think it's a magical night. But this will be close. And we'll look forward to the next time we get a chance to have the annual meeting and have the history awards actually in the Old State Capitol itself.
So I'll reiterate what Scott says, that he was throwing it out to you all. If anyone would like to get on camera with us and give a statement about any of the award winners or any effects that it might have in your neck of the woods, we really would love to have as many voices in this presentation as possible. So please reach out to Scott or let us know in the chat if you'd like to record something simple, and we'll set it up for you. Thank you.
Scott, is there any opportunity to make sure that a lot of Kentuckians who never have an opportunity to attend one of these. Is there some way to make more people aware of this opportunity?
Yes, I mean, I think we'll obviously push this out on the promotions. We found like the teachers workshops, when we push them out virtually, people are more apt to log in. You know, if you don't have to drive from, you know, like you do, Jennifer, 3 or 4 hours to get here to go to the history awards at the Old State Capitol, people will be able to just jump right on and view it on YouTube or on our social media channels. Teresa's waving at me.
Just to let everybody know to watch the mail. The ballot as well as the meeting announcement went out yesterday. So we are in line with our statute to get the notice out. There is a registration link on that ballot, and they can also go to our website where they can just click the link there to register. And we will also notify people through every other means possible about the annual meeting. And then I want to add something before we totally close down. He's not back, but Judge Turner retired as the LaRue County Judge Executive this year. He is one of the longest serving judge executives in Kentucky, and he has given quite a few years of civic service. So we just, if you want to have a chance to send him an email saying thank you for your service, that would be great.
Good idea. Thank you. Scott, I'm not sure how this works, but could non-members view the virtual meeting, or is it going to be limited to members?
No. Just like we do for here, we'll probably just stream it to YouTube live, and anybody can log on to our YouTube channel to watch the proceedings.
So with that in mind, I have an idea. If somebody on the staff would write a column in the form of a personal column about this opportunity this year and send it out to newspapers, many of them will publish that. They will.
I see the wheels turning in Jessica's mind. So
I've already written it down. But you mean on the side of a personal column from KHS or from a winner?
From Scott, probably. Yeah. You know that, hey, it's an unusual year, and you may not know that we have one of the coolest events ever, you know, every year in November, but this year you can be part of it, and here's what I'm talking about. And I mean, I will run it on my news site, but I know a lot of newspapers would take that and publish it in advance of, to let them know that they can watch the virtual membership meeting.
Great idea. Thank you.
And Scott, we can again work with Danielle. They already have the press release for it, so we can attach that with it for their distribution, and we'll go a lot farther.
Do you think history teachers might give students credit for watching it? You might encourage our teachers to encourage their students to watch it somehow.
We could definitely look at that, because we have, we'll be honoring the Kentucky History Teacher of the Year during this award cycle, the Gilded Lemon Kentucky History Teacher of the Year.
Yeah, we have various avenues to communicate with teachers, so that's a great idea, Geneva.
Okay, Scott, help me out. Where are we?
I think we are done. We are ready to adjourn, unless there's other questions.
Okay.
After we adjourn, I have a video of the Kentucky Haunted Historic Kentucky History.
Haunted History Treasures.
Sorry, I'm butchering it. I apologize. So after it's over, I'll run it, and I'll try to stream it here to our Zoom call, so you can watch it from there. If not, we'll post it out there, and you can get it on. We'll send you the link to it.
Okay. Do we normally, I can't remember, do we do a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, you need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Do I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye and hold up your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Hi, everybody.
Here is the video.
Thanks, Scott.
A conjured chest of drawers with a body count, a haunted Civil War cornet with unearthly powers,
You have to
a
share your
graveyard
screen.
quilt with a spooky family history, and many more. Join Doug and Lisa I as they explore the lore and legend behind these objects on Haunted Historic Kentucky with the Kentucky Historical Society. Thursday, October 29th at 7:30, only on ABC 36.
Sorry, I forgot to hit the share button, didn't I?
That was great.
We'll send it out. You all watch it and share it with your friends.
Thank you.
Thank you all.